right, let's talk about Florida. When most people think of the Sunshine State, their minds jump to a few specific things. You've got sprawling theme parks with giant mice, endless miles of sandy beaches packed with tourists, and maybe a few retirement communities where the biggest event of the week is bingo night. It's a version of Florida that's been marketed to us for decades. It's loud, it's flashy, and it's a lot. But here's a secret: most people fly right over on their way to Orlando. That's not the whole story. Not even close. There's another Florida, a quieter, more authentic place tucked away from the chaos. I'm talking about a place that feels like it's from a different time. I'm talking about Mount Dora, nestled in the rolling hills of Central Florida. Yes, you heard me. Hills in Florida. This town is something of an anomaly. It sits perched on the edge of the magnificent Lake Dora, part of the Harris chain of lakes. It's a place where the pace of life slows down, where history isn't just in a museum, but is baked into the very bricks of the buildings and the cobblestones under your feet. It's a town that has managed to hold on to its character, its soul, in a state that's constantly reinventing itself. This isn't the Florida of roller coasters and high-rise condos. This is a town with a story to tell, a real, honest-to-goodness story. So how does a place like this happen? It doesn't just spring up overnight, perfectly preserved and full of charm. It's built layer by layer over generations. It's the result of tough people carving a life out of the wilderness, visionaries, seeing potential where others saw swamp, a community, deciding that its past was worth saving. The story of Mount Dora is the story of Florida in miniature, a journey from untamed frontier to a celebrated destination. It's a tale of pioneer steamboats, railroads, a whole lot of hard work. And like any good story, it's full of interesting characters and unexpected turns. To really understand Mount Dora, you have to peel back those layers. You have to look past the beautiful sunsets over the lake and the quaint antique shops that line the streets. You have to go back to the beginning, long before the first surveyor drew a line on a map. We're going on a little trip through time to see how this hidden gem was formed. Long before any settlers with dreams of citrus groves and winter retreats set foot here, this land was already home. We're talking centuries, even millennia ago. The earliest inhabitants were indigenous peoples, folks who knew this land in a way we can only imagine. The Timucua people were the dominant group in this part of Florida. They weren't just passing through. Villages, trade routes, a deep understanding of the local environment. They lived off the land, hunting, fishing in the pristine lakes, gathering plants. For them, the high ground overlooking the vast expanse of what we now call Lake Dora wasn't just a pretty view. It was a strategic and resource-rich place to live. These weren't simple, primitive people. Archaeological evidence tells us they were skilled and organized, like the famous shell middens found throughout the region. These massive mounds of discarded shells, pottery tools, are like ancient time capsules, giving us a glimpse into their daily lives. They built canoes to navigate the intricate network of lakes and rivers, creating a highway system on the water. They knew the seasons, the wildlife, and the secrets of the cypress swamps. This land provided everything they needed, and they, in turn, respected it. It was a balance that lasted for thousands of years, a testament to a way of life that was perfectly in tune with the rhythm of Central Florida. Then, as it happened all over the Americas, everything changed. The arrival of European explorers in the 16th century brought with it diseases to which the native populations had no immunity. It was a devastating blow. The Timucua, along with other indigenous groups, saw their numbers plummet. Their way of life, which had sustained them for countless generations, was disrupted and eventually shattered. By the time the first American settlers began trickling into this area in the 1800s, the powerful Timucua chiefdoms were gone, leaving behind only echoes of their existence. The mounds, the artifacts, and the names they gave to the lakes and rivers. When we talk about the founding of Mount Dora, it's crucial to remember that the story didn't start with an empty slate. Fast forward to the 1870s. The Civil War is over. Florida is being promoted as a new frontier. This is when Mount Dora's modern story begins. Hardy homesteaders began arriving, drawn by fertile land and a mild climate. Drawdy Simpson Tremaine arriving to start new lives. Cleared the land, planted citrus trees, built simple log cabins. The settlement was initially known as Royalo, named by combining the postmaster's children's names, Roy Ella Louie. A classic small-town America story. The area began to grow, still a tiny isolated outpost. Getting here wasn't easy. By steamboat up the St. Johns River, then a trek overland through thick brush and sandy trails. But the beauty was undeniable. The settlement sat on a bluff, about 184 feet above sea level, offering stunning views of the pristine lake below. This elevation, rare in Florida, made it stand out. That high ground would help give the town part of its name. Enter Dora Andrade, one of the earliest, most respected homesteaders, known for kindness and hospitality. In 1883, federal surveyors charted the area. They were taken with Mrs. Drade's generosity and named the lake in her honor. The lake became Lake Dora. Townsfolk followed suit. They combined two features, Mount for the elevation, Dora for the lake. Roylo was dropped, Mount Dora was born. For any isolated frontier town in the late 19th century, survival and growth depended on one thing: connection. In the 1880s, that connection came in the form of the Iron Horse. The arrival of the railroad was the single most transformative event in Mount Dora's early history. Suddenly, the arduous journey by steamboat and wagon was replaced by the speed and efficiency of train travel. The first line to reach the town was a narrow-gauge railroad that chugged its way from Sanford to Tavares, with a crucial stop in Mount Dora. Sanford, Tavares, Mount Dora. It was a game-changer, connecting the small lakeside community to the rest of the state and the nation. The impact was immediate and profound. What once took days to transport now took hours. Local farmers and citrus growers could finally ship their produce, oranges, grapefruits, vegetables, to northern markets quickly and reliably. This created an economic boom. Land values soared, new businesses opened up, and the population began to grow. The chugging sound of the locomotive and the whistle echoing across Lake Dora became the new heartbeat of the town. It was the sound of progress, the sound of a future that was suddenly much brighter and more prosperous than anyone had dared to imagine just a few years earlier. But the railroad brought more than just freight. It brought people. Specifically, it brought wealthy northerners looking to escape the brutal winters. With the arrival of the railroad came more than just commerce and tourists. It brought a wave of culture that would elevate Mount Dora to a new level of sophistication. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Chautauqua movement was sweeping across America. It was a popular adult education and social movement that aimed to bring lectures, music, and entertainment. Think of it as a sort of traveling university and arts festival rolled into one. In 1887, a group of Mount Dora's forward-thinking citizens decided they wanted a piece of that action, establishing the Mount Dora Chautauqua. This wasn't some small-time affair. They built a grand 2,500-seat auditorium right on the shores of Lake Dora. For several weeks each winter, this hall became the epicenter of cultural life in Central Florida. It hosted a dazzling array of speakers, performers, thinkers. We're talking about nationally recognized figures like William Jennings, Brian Carey, Nation Lord Baden-Powell. People would travel from all over the state to attend these events, filling the hotels and boarding houses and creating a vibrant, intellectual atmosphere in the town. To cater to this discerning clientele, grand hotels were built. The most famous of these was the Lakeside Inn. Opened in 1883 as a simple 10-room inn, it was expanded over the years into a rambling Victorian-style resort. It became the social heart of the winter colony. It hosted galas concerts and afternoon teas on its wide verandas overlooking Lake Dora. The hotel even had its own private yachts for guests. Guests enjoyed sailing and fishing on the lake. Famously, it hosted President Calvin Coolidge and his wife, Grace, for a month-long vacation in the winter of 1930. That visit cemented Mount Dora's status as a top-tier destination. Life for the winter residents was a leisurely affair. Days were filled with genteel pursuits, sailing on the lake, playing tennis, playing golf at the newly formed Mount Dora Yacht Club, the first inland yacht club in Florida, strolling through town and socializing with fellow visitors. It was a community built on shared status and a desire for a peaceful, restorative escape. These seasonal residents brought wealth that supported the local economy. They also brought sophisticated tastes that influenced architecture, landscaping, and cultural amenities. This era really defined Mount Dora's aesthetic. The influence of these wealthy patrons is still visible, from preserved Victorian homes to manicured public parks. They helped fund the library, supported the local churches, and championed preservation of the town's natural beauty. They weren't just passive tourists. They were active participants in shaping the community. Their vision of Mount Dora as a New England of the South, a place of quiet charm, architectural grace, and natural splendor, became a self-fulfilling prophecy. They helped create the very atmosphere that continues to draw people to the town today. If you want to read the story of a town, you don't always need a book sometimes. You just need to look at the buildings. In Mount Dora, the architecture is a history lesson in itself. As you walk through the historic district, you're taking a tour through time. The dominant style is Victorian. It gives the town so much of its character. You see it everywhere. Sprawling verandas, intricate gingerbread trim, steep gables, and charming bay windows. These aren't reproductions. Many are the original homes and buildings constructed during the town's boom years in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The Lakeside Inn is the crown jewel, a sprawling example of Florida vernacular architecture with strong Victorian influences. It's not just one building, but a collection of structures built and added onto over time, telling the story of the town's growth as a tourist destination. Then you have Donnelly House, a stunning Queen Anne-style mansion sitting high on a hill overlooking the town. With its distinctive pale pink and green paint, stained glass windows, and ornate woodwork, it looks like something straight out of a fairy tale. Built in 1893 by one of the town's early mayors, it's a testament to the optimism and prosperity of that era. But it's not all grand Victorian mansions. The story is also told in the smaller, more modest structures. The simple, wood-frame cracker-style houses, with their metal roofs and wide porches designed for the Florida heat, speak to the lives of the year-round working families. The historic downtown commercial buildings with their classic brick facades and recessed doorways tell the story of a thriving Main Street economy. Even the Mount Dora Community Building, a handsome Mediterranean revival structure built in 1929, reflects the changing architectural tastes of the early 20th century and the town's ongoing commitment to civic life. If you want to read the story of a town, you don't always need a book sometimes. You just need to look at the buildings. In Mount Dora, the architecture is a history lesson in itself. The biggest of them all is the Mount Dora Arts Festival. For one weekend every February, the streets of downtown are transformed into a massive outdoor art gallery. Hundreds of artists from all over the country set up their booths, showcasing everything from painting, sculpture to jewelry and photography. It's a juried show, meaning the quality is top-notch, and it consistently ranks as one of the best arts festivals in the nation. Then there are the other events that add to the town's unique flavor. You've got the annual craft fair in the fall. There's the Scottish Highland Festival, celebrating the area's Celtic roots with bagpipes, kilts, and caber tossing. And you can't forget the annual Light Up Mount Dora event, when the entire downtown and waterfront are decked out in millions of twinkling Christmas lights, creating a magical holiday spectacle. These traditions aren't just for tourists, they are beloved community gatherings that bring neighbors together. And let's be honest, every great town needs a little bit of weirdness. Mount Dora has its share of quirky charm, from the ghost tours that explore the spooky legends of its historic buildings, to the unique, one-of-a-kind shops that you won't find in any mall. It's a place that doesn't take itself too seriously. This blend of high art, community tradition, and a touch of the unusual is what makes Mount Dora so appealing. It's a town that respects its dignified past, but also knows how to have a good time in the present. It proves that history doesn't have to be stuffy. So here we are, back in 2025, standing on the shores of Lake Dora. The sun is setting, casting a golden glow on the water. The lights are starting to twinkle on at the Lakeside Inn. After this journey through time, you start to see the town differently. You realize that the charm of Mount Dora isn't an accident. It's not a manufactured theme park version of old Florida. It is the authentic, living result of every story we've just talked about. It's the sum of all its parts, a place deeply and genuinely shaped by its own unique history. And that, right there, is a job well done.